Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 351, and today's show is brought to you by Pingdom, ExpressVPN, and Indeed. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I am good. It's hot, and I'm exhausted by the heat, but I'm good. Yes.
Those two things don't sound good to me, but if you can deal with them, that's awesome.
Yep. Yes.
Stephen is not here this week. He is, I believe, lost in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as much as we have to say on that. Hopefully
Maybe
Stephen
we'll
will be
come back.
next time. Who knows?
Maybe not. Who knows?
No one can know.
Summer of... No, fun is taken.
Yeah,
Summer
of no Stephen.
Disappearance.
My iMac arrived today.
Oh.
It was unexpected. It was very unexpected. It was supposed to come in mid-July. And then a few days ago, it shipped directly from China. And then all of a sudden today, it was out for delivery, which was surprising to me. It's arrived at home. I don't have it here, but I'll be bringing it to the studio tomorrow. And I'll be setting it up. I'll be back to yellow iMac land, which I'm excited about.
You didn't send us a picture.
Of what?
Of the iMac.
Because I don't have it yet. It's at home. I'm not at home.
Oh, you're not home. Okay.
No.
All right. Yeah. Makes sense.
So I did buy something to put it on. I bought a stand.
Oh, let's see.
From a company, GroveMade. I think GroveMade are one of these companies that make a lot of things that don't meet your own aesthetic tastes. It's all wood.
Oh, yeah.
Wood
You
and
like
brass
this
and that kind of
wood and
stuff.
accessories. Yeah. Okay.
But I bought this stand to put the iMac on to try and raise it up a bit. But I thought this stand... I like the look of it, but I thought the function of it's pretty good because I can just put things underneath it, you know?
Right.
Which I thought was a pretty good idea. So that I have that now.
What you gonna put underneath that? Like your USB Pre 2, for example?
Yeah, probably my USB Pre 2 and maybe my little audio, like my headphone amp or something maybe. I'll see. But I think that will work pretty well for me. So I'm very excited to be back on the iMac. I also have my second monitor set up again, which I'm looking forward to. I do want to give a piece of follow-up, which is completely unnecessary. It's a correction. On the previous episode, I said I had a 2 terabyte SSD. I actually have a 1 terabyte SSD. I apologize for the error, and I hope I could be forgiven.
I don't know.
I know it's difficult. I need to break out Apple Notes and write one of those things out, you know.
One of those apology notes that you can tweet out.
I saw someone say that with live text, you'll be able to copy and paste the text out of those now.
Well, yes. So I've been thinking about this too, in theory. So in Safari, for sure, because the Safari preview image takes over like whatever custom preview thing Twitter is doing in the mobile app. But in Safari, like I actually came across this yesterday. I was trying to copy a photo from Google Images, and if you're not careful, you just select the text instead. So you need to be, and maybe this will be tweaked over the upcoming betas, but you need to be extra careful when you're long pressing an image, because if it contains some text in Safari, you're not going to copy that text.
Yeah, I just had this with Gray. I was sending him a picture of a handwriting sample on paper because that's the life that we share now, I suppose. And we were on the phone at the time, and he was trying to tap the image to make it larger or like to zoom in on it, and he just kept selecting my handwriting instead. It's like, this isn't what I wanted.
It's like, computer, I need you to be a little dumber right now.
This is one of those things that I can imagine him tweaking. Like in certain circumstances, like I feel like it should work the same way it works in maybe in the Photos app where you have to press the button first to go into kind of like text selection mode. Is that right? Have I got that right? I think it's on the iPad. It's like this. There's like a little button and it shows you like what looks like a piece of paper, and you press it and then you can select the text.
Oh, isn't that just an indicator that tells you?
Is it just an indicator? Oh, okay.
I think it is.
I think it is. I think maybe in certain circumstances it would be helpful to have like a mode you go into, but it is also kind of magical to just be like, there's an image, I want that text, I'll just select it.
Yeah, but that stuff is really incredible though. Like
it is cool.
It's cool, and it's a little bit of a bummer right now that, and I guess if anyone from the Shortcuts team is listening, I was kind of hoping to put together like a shortcut with live text already, where you use the take a picture action in the Shortcuts app, and instead of taking a picture, you capture the live text and you pass it on to the next action as text. Like if you want to put together a custom shortcut, basically build what the camera does, but in shortcuts, so that you can have other actions, But that's not possible right now because the take picture action is not live text enabled right now in beta 1, it seems.
Yeah, this feels addable. I don't know if we're going to get it in iOS 15.0, but that definitely feels like something you could add. I mean, especially because they had that... there's that WWDC session with the live sounds thing, or whatever they call it, right? The sound detection. And the guy was using shortcuts for that, where it was like detecting sounds. And
they
like
do have the
searching through
trigger.
his thing.
They do have the sound recognition trigger in the automations right now.
Which, I mean, I don't. Well, it's like, I mean, I know it's not the same thing, but it doesn't seem far away from that in my mind. Like those two things seem somewhat similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, how could I use the sound recognition trigger for an automation? And I was wondering, like, maybe if I put like an iPad by the front door and it detects like the doorbell, it could do stuff, right? But I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an iPad. Like, you know how people sometimes they hang those iPads, like a spare iPad Mini or something, on a wall.
I tried doing that.
Yeah.
I tried setting one up in the kitchen. This was before I got my Echo Show. And I tried setting one up in the kitchen, and it didn't. It ended up just not being what I wanted. It was like an iPad's too fully functioned. I want it to be simple, but it's like it keeps getting all my notifications, and you have to kind of keep turning stuff off, and you got to charge it more unless you leave it plugged in all the time or whatever. And yeah, the Echo Show ended up working out perfectly for what we wanted.
Yeah.
Because it's also made for that, right? Like you got a timer running, the thing's showing you the timer all the time. Like it's kind of more focused for that, which is why, we've spoken about it on this show before, we will again in the future, why we would like to see Apple build a home product with a screen, because you can put a version of the operating system that is fully catered towards meeting the tasks of that device, rather than trying to like make it work for you with a more general purpose computer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have the Echo Show, the one that turns around when you say the trigger word?
No, we have the one before that.
Okay. I saw some videos of that. It's funny.
Cool. It's very cool. I think really the biggest benefit for that is video calling, and we don't video call from the Echo Show.
Right.
I mean, I will say, like, we do love the center stage.
Yes. I've been using that.
It's so nice. It's so good. I love that feature on the new iPad. So like when we have our like calls with family and friends now, we use Adina's iPad Pro. And the center stage functionality is really good. It gets a bit weird sometimes, right? But like it's great like 95% of the time.
Yes.
It's a really good feature.
Yeah.
Nice little addition. Listeners of the show probably know by now that we have Connected Pro, which is every single week you can get longer versions of the show. We do pre-show or post-show and sometimes both, and with no ads. You go to getconnectedpro.co and you can sign up for that. There's a particular reason I'm mentioning now is we are now 1 year into Connected Pro. So we just wanted to extend an additional thank you than the one we would normally extend to everyone who's supported the show over the last year. It's been a worrying, challenging time, right? And can still be in certain circumstances if you are like running your own business. I'm sure many of our listeners will know that. And having the support directly from our members has been something to really take the weight off of our minds. So thank you to everybody that's chosen to support this show. It really means a lot to us, and we hope that you continue to enjoy the Connected Pro content.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Last week, Day One was acquired by Automattic. Automattic, the company behind WordPress. It's got 2 T's in it. You may have forgotten this, that Automattic also owns SimpleNote and Tumblr.
I did.
I'd forgotten they own Tumblr. I remembered SimpleNote. I forgot Tumblr. I think it's because Tumblr has been owned by so many people now that it's difficult to remember that one.
In my mind, Automattic owns Tumblr like Mozilla owns Pocket.
Pocket, yeah, it's very similar. I mean, but actually... You're not far off, really, because one of the things that Automatic has done, at least with the things that we've seen them buy up recently, is to seemingly keep the services not only independent from a branding perspective, but they also seem to be run independently.
Yeah.
And so, I think that seems pretty cool. I guess this is probably pretty good for day one. It's still going to be run by the founder, Paul Main.
Yeah.
Matt Mullenweg, who is the CEO, founder. I'm not sure if he's CEO, but I'm pretty sure founder of Automatic. Wrote like a really nice blog post kind of about what day one means to him personally.
Yeah. I feel like this has to be the best case scenario for something like for a product like day one. Like if day one couldn't stay independent, right? If they made the decision that like if we want to keep growing, we need to be acquired by someone with, more resources than we have. I think a company like Automatic, like I really like them. I like what the company stands for. I think they're doing an excellent job with WordPress and with the other products that they have.
Don't forget they have the open source. It's more than just WordPress.com. It's also WordPress, the open source part.
Yes.
Seems like a pretty good company.
I think it does seem like a pretty good fit, right? Day One is an app that you use for personal writing, right? It's a writing app, much like WordPress could be a writing service. Tumblr could be a short form writing service. And this one is a personal, journaling and diary sort of, that kind of different writing product. And so it does seem like a good fit to me. And you could see how, some aspects of the day one experience, like photo uploads, right? Automatic as a CDN that now they can leverage for media uploads in your personal journal. So in theory, on paper, it sounds like the best case scenario outcome for day one. I had no idea personally that day one was looking to be acquired, but I mean, definitely better than, say, I don't know, Verizon, right? Or some other giant corporation that is just going to...
Or any rando company. This is your journal, your personal journal. You don't want just any random company buying it.
There's people that have been journaling in day one for a decade at this point.
Yeah.
Like I remember using day one years ago when I was in a not so great period of my life, and day one was there. So I think it is the best case scenario. I feel like it's a cool company. I like how they seem to suggest like they're gonna stay independent. They're gonna be operated by the same founder. Nothing is gonna change. Now, obviously, long term, some things are going to change.
I don't like that phrase. Nothing's going to change.
Right? I know.
That's impossible. And also, look, I don't know what was going on with day one, but something had to change because they needed to be acquired.
Exactly.
So there needs to be some kind of change because they were clearly not operating at a level where an acquisition wasn't necessary for them. And sometimes acquisitions are a necessity, like financially or, just in general needing different resources. And so a company finding a good home can actually be the best outcome because otherwise day one may have gone away, But things will change, and that's fine. I know why companies say nothing's going to change, but it's a bit of a platitude. You know how I feel about platitudes, but it's I'm happy for them though, genuinely, because I know that day one means a lot to a lot of people, and I'm pleased that the app will continue. I'm pleased that it's going to be run by the same people, and I'm pleased that they seem to be at a home that feels like it will be treated right and given what it's needed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, this news though, like this acquisition, it made me think how I've been doing this for a while at this point. Writing Mac stories. We have been doing the podcast for 8 years, and in all these years, like we've seen a lot of these acquisitions, right? And it made me think how rare it is these days for something to truly stay independent forever.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, like it's easy to summarize as, everyone gets acquired eventually. which, I mean, it's not true. It's not true that everyone gets acquired, but a lot of companies, and especially over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of consolidation, I think, between Apple, Google, Facebook,
The big
what
five.
else? Amazon,
Amazon and what was it? Apple, Google, Facebook, Amazon.
Twitter.
Who's the
No.
fifth?
It's not Twitter. is it?
Facebook.
Facebook. Oh yes, Facebook. But yeah, like there's been a lot of these corporations acquiring services and apps that we use. And that is, on one hand, it's kind of sad, right? But it also makes sense. And in some cases, it's led to new features on iPhone, for example. Like take a look at workflow and becoming shortcuts, right? So in a lot of cases, it's great. But it also, like in thinking about this, it made me appreciate the truly indie developers a lot more. Like it's challenging to stay independent for a long time on the internet these days.
Well, I think what makes it even harder, Federico, to actually do it is because the intended goal of companies that are started in modern times is to be acquired. Right? Like that's the goal. You set up your entire company in a way that acquisition is the win.
Yeah.
Right? So like your entire structure for how you make money and spend money is in such a way to increase your user base to the point that you become attractive to a larger company and they buy you. That's why it happens more, because companies are created with the express purpose of trying to be acquired.
Yeah. Well, good luck day one. I hope it's found a good home. Seems like it. But
Me too. It's good. I think this is probably the best place for it.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Pingdom from SolarWinds. If you have a website, what is it for? Whether it's driving people to your products, collecting sales leads for your company, or providing customer service of a contact form. When these critical transactions fail, you lose out on business and it's a bad experience for your users. There is a solution to this, transaction monitoring from Pingdom. Because starting at just $10 a month, transaction monitoring will run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, checking how things are going on your website and will alert you when cart checkout forms or login pages fail before they affect your customers and your business. Pingdom will notify you the moment there is a failure over SMS, email, or via your favorite apps like Slack, OpsGenie, and PagerDuty. Depending on what's being monitored and the severity of the outage, you can also customize who's alerted and how they get the notification. So, if something's really bad and it's on a certain part of the website, it goes to this person and alerts them under these ways that they want to be alerted. It's really, really cool. Don't let your users discover a problem with your website. You want to be the first to know, and you should be. It's super easy to get started. Just go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now and you can get a 30-day free trial with no credit card required. Then when you're ready to buy, use the code CONNECTED at checkout and you'll get a huge 30% off your first invoice. That's pingdom.com/relayfm and connected at checkout. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for their support of this show and Relay FM. Jetpack Joyride is coming to Apple Arcade. Jetpack Joyride is one of my favorite iOS games of all time. It's made by Halfbrick, is the name of the studio that created it. And they had a bunch of games. If I'm remembering rightly, Jetpack Joyride was like a spin-off from another game that they made.
I think so.
They were making like a dual-stick shooter game that this character was a part of. And then they made Jetpack Joyride.
That was many years ago.
Like a sequel or a spin-off type game.
Yes, you're right, though. Yes.
And it's like it's basically not as difficult Flappy Bird before Flappy Bird, right? Like it's that going left to right, you're going up and down by pressing and holding on the screen. This is one of the most recent games that is coming to Apple Arcade and getting the plus added at the end of it. Apparently, I saw it saying this is coming in July, like maybe July 23rd is the expectation. So yeah, I'm super pumped for this. This is one of my very favorite all-time iOS games. I played this game for years.
I remember this game. I'm really happy that I'm really happy with this initiative that Apple is doing with, reviving old games as part of Apple Arcade. I think it's a very smart move. It speaks to my... Oh, was Minigore the name of the game?
Very possible.
I think it was Minigore. Top-down dual-stick shooter. Yeah, it sounds like Minigore to me. Anyway, this initiative, it speaks to my interest in game preservation, right? And I know that it's done for profit. I know that it's all part of this bigger plan of, expanding the Apple Arcade catalog. It doesn't matter. As long as you take an old game and you make it available again, that counts as a win for me. So yeah, you could be cynical about it and say, yeah, but they're only doing this because of the money. Sure. I mean, Apple is not a charity, and Apple is not the Video Game History Foundation, right? They don't necessarily care as much as certain organizations do about this topic. But the end result is what matters. And the end result is we are getting old games updated for the latest devices, and you can play them again with better graphics, controller support, and iCloud integration. So I'm really happy they're doing this. And I'm just gonna say it. I hope Apple works out a deal with EA, I guess, to bring back Flight Control, because I really want to play Flight Control again.
Oh my God, yeah.
That game disappeared years ago from the App Store.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'm really happy they're doing this. I think it's smart to sort of complement Apple Arcade, which is, shaping up to be the service where you have originals, you have new games, and you have these new editions of old classics. I think it's smart. It's a great move. I'm in favor of it. And Jetpack Joyride, I'm really happy to see, because I also played that game a lot. And yeah, great news.
Yeah, it was a good one. I'm really excited about it. I wonder if there'll be anything additional coming for it. I saw that they were doing something as well with Alto's Odyssey with additional levels, I think, is coming to Apple Arcade.
What's it called? The Lost City, I think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, yeah, Alto's Odyssey, The Lost City is coming to Apple Arcade as well. So they're doing a lot of interesting stuff. Oh, this is Angry Birds Reloaded and Doodle God Universe are also coming to Apple Arcade. So I love this. New games, great old games. Yes,
all kinds of games.
Forensic is fantastic, by the way.
I still have to play that because I've been writing the review this week, and so I haven't played games.
Very, very good. It's very, very good. It feels like both a sequel and a new version. And
okay.
It's really, I'm really, really liking it. I think it's great.
I mean, if you think about it, Apple is sort of following the Nintendo model here, taking old games and making money off of them again.
Yep.
So classic Nintendo playbook over here. And I mean, it's a tried and true model. It works. People are going to spend that money again. So, but this is for a subscription service. So I think it's even, it's very clever. And look, Nintendo should really do this, right? We've been talking about it forever on Remaster, our video game podcast. Nintendo, why don't you make a $5 a month service where I can play all kinds of old Nintendo games, but on my new Nintendo Switch? But they don't get it. So.
Oh, they'll do it, but in 10 years.
Sure.
Game Pass will happen, it'll be a big success, and then Nintendo will do it 10 years later, and it'll be half of the catalog to start with, and it won't make any sense. Because it's just what Nintendo do.
Yes.
But people will love it. It will have some weird charm to it, which basically just means they forgot something.
We will get xCloud with Game Pass integration on the Nintendo Switch before we get a Nintendo subscription service.
Incredibly possible.
So,
Dark Sky received an update. It's not
Speaking
really...
of acquisitions...
This is one of those things I saw the headlines for this and was I was more excited that it ended up being, but it also just opens up for a point that I wanted to bring up anyway. Basically they updated it. It got some bug fixes and accessibility improvements by and large. But I was expecting the app to be gone by now. I think we all were. I'm sure this has something to do with the fact that they announced that the API is going to live on for another year. So I don't know if we're going to get a grand plan for weather from Apple as the reason why they bought Dark Sky, which is more than just hey, we put some radar maps in the weather app on iOS 15, which is very dark sky-y, right? But I was expecting them to, well, we all were, for them to have at least killed the API and probably the app by now, but it seems like they're not. Maybe they are going to do something more. I don't know.
So my personal theory, which is also like a very popular theory, is that Apple wants to do a WeatherKit framework for iOS and iPadOS and the Mac in the future. So basically an API that allows weather apps on Apple platforms to use that data provided by Apple free of charge, right? Instead of developers having to pay a fee, like usually a subscription fee to use cloud services for weather data. Whether it's the Weather Channel or what's the other one?
AccuWeather.
AccuWeather, all these.
Yeah.
Carrot Weather is a good example of this. Like Carrot Weather, the developer Brian Mueller years ago made the decision to switch to a subscription model to offset and to cover the costs of running a highly customizable weather app powered by different kinds of sources. And so if I were Apple, I will look at this and I'd be like, okay, we can make our own weather app much better with the Dark Sky integration. But also Dark Sky, it's not just an app that we are acquiring to copy the design and to hire the makers of it. It also powers all these other apps that are part of our ecosystem already. And so if I were Apple, I would say, well, maybe there's an opportunity for us here to make it easier for our developers to build alternative weather apps for, maybe iPad users that don't have a native weather app installed. They're looking for a third-party weather app. And so we would allow developers to integrate with our framework, give them the data for free, so they don't have to stress over the fact that they need to pay an external service for that data. And also, our service will be built in. It's going to have great performance. You don't have to worry about, updating data in the background. Going to make it easy for you if you want to make a complication on the watch, for example, that needs to poll weather updates in the background and consuming battery potentially. Like, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And also, those services, a lot of these weather apps, they have some questionable privacy choices, right? And you could imagine Apple saying our framework is native, it doesn't expose any user data, it's not creepy, it's not, privacy invasive, you can plug your app into it, and just like developers have been able to integrate with MapKit instead of the Google Maps framework for displaying maps data and information, so you will be able to do the same with WeatherKit in the future. That would be my theory, but I guess it's not ready yet, and therefore Apple realized we're just going to keep Dark Sky around for another year. And maybe in iOS 16 next year, we're going to get this WeatherKit framework and Dark Sky will shut down for good. And maybe they will make, like they have a MapKit JS framework for JavaScript on the web. Maybe they will also do WeatherKit JS if you wanna build a compatible service that it's not on Apple platforms. Maybe you will have a web component as well. But that would be my theory, that they want to do their own thing, they want to make it easier for developers, but it's not ready yet.
Somebody wrote to us, we spoke about it as an upgrade, and referenced the fact that, and honestly I didn't notice, I don't know if you know this, that Dark Sky isn't data. They're actually pulling in other data sources, and then they sell that to developers. So Apple hasn't bought a bunch of their own data. Dark Sky is a good way to interpret data.
Mm-hmm.
So if Apple did do this, they would still need to be paying someone for the data, but they're already doing that.
As long as Apple pays, you don't care.
And it's not like they don't have the money, right? So
right, it's much better for the $2 trillion corporation to pay for weather data than the indie developer.
I do wonder what would happen to weather apps, though.
That is the question, right? It's interesting to think about that. Honestly, I don't think it's gonna revolutionize the space, but it's going to be a nice option to have. It's going to be much simpler to build a weather app with a different design and different features because you don't have to worry about that aspect. But I don't
I mean more the business models. So like I would just say like I will pay monthly for a weather app. Like I don't care. Like I don't care about the data. Right? I don't pay for Carrot because I want to make sure that they have the money for the data, right? I pay monthly for Carrot because I use the app every single day and I love it, right? But there is like an argument which is correct to make, which is like they have ongoing monthly costs, maybe in a way that other apps don't. And if everyone just switches to Apple's thing, it would be interesting to see if and how business models would change for weather apps.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, now you know the WeatherKit exists, and you as a user will be like, why do I need to pay you now? Well, can't you just use WeatherKit? I don't want to pay a subscription anymore.
And maybe there'll be like different tiers. Like, like something like Carrot, you can pay more or less depending on how much data you want and from where. And there's always going to be requirements for specialized data services, I'm sure, right? So
right.
It'd just be changes, I assume, to the way that business models work.
Yeah, but I really want to see what they do here. Maybe they also wanted to do this next year because they're finally bringing a weather app to iPad next year. I don't know.
Did you see the 9 to 5 Mac article about the iPad weather app?
That was brilliant, right?
It was truly superb. Like it's a parody article, basically. Written by Taylor Hall. So I recommend people go and check that out. I'll just put a link in the show notes. No spoilers. It's great. All right, this episode is also brought to you by ExpressVPN. There are so many VPN providers out there, but there's a reason I use ExpressVPN. There's a reason why you're hearing me talk about them right now. It's because they're really good. ExpressVPN doesn't log your activity online. You could find a cheap or free VPN, but they will probably be making money selling your data, because they have to make money somehow, right? ExpressVPN doesn't do this. And they even developed a technology called Trusted Server that makes their VPN servers incapable of storing data, because instead of storing information on hard drives, they use RAM. So every time there's a power cycle, all of the data is wiped. I think this is a really clever way of doing it. And when I was reading about stuff like this, when we were working with ExpressVPN, it's like, the way that I look at this feels easy for me to trust, and I do. ExpressVPN is super fast. It uses a new technology, a new VPN protocol that they've engineered called Lightway to make the speeds for their users faster than ever. You may have tried other VPNs and feel like it can slow your connection down, but ExpressVPN is always blazing fast and lets you stream videos in HD quality with zero buffering. I've been doing this before the Lightway system, and I've been able to watch video. I've watched video in other countries. I've watched video in this country. Sometimes it changed my location so I could access something otherwise I couldn't in one location or the other. And I've been able to, you would never know that you were connected to a VPN. Super fast, excellent quality, no issues. And now it's only getting better. And ExpressVPN is really easy to use. There are no technical skills needed, so just fire up the app and tap one button to connect. So this is from people tech savvy in your lives and maybe people who aren't so much. Anyone can use it because it really is just clicking one button. CNET, The Verge, and so many other tech sites as well, they rate ExpressVPN the #1 VPN available. So protect yourself with the VPN that I use and trust as well. Go to expressvpn.com/connected and get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/connected, expressvpn.com/connected to learn more. Our thanks to ExpressVPN for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. I want to talk about email.
Oh, okay.
It's like one of my favorite things to talk about always.
Wow, evergreen topic. Okay.
I mean, this is spurred on by something that's happened in my life, and so now I'm bringing it to the show.
Okay.
So I finally got around to canceling my Hey subscriptions.
All right.
Because my personal Hey account, I canceled that ages ago because I don't use it. But I was using on your challenge, your request, I'd switched my Cortex brand email to Hey before Hey made some decisions that we weren't happy with. We spoke about those a few weeks ago. And I wasn't able to cancel off my subscription until I got some projects out of the way, because there was some stuff that we were working on, web based stuff. And I didn't want to find myself in a situation where something didn't get set up right because someone missed an email during the migration. And plus, we had a designer and web developer working on it too. And I already felt bad about making him set up the Hey account in the first place. And now, like a couple of weeks later, saying, like, we're going back to Gmail. So I wanted to wait until it was all set. So Gmail is what I went with because why wouldn't you?
Right.
And I know people go, what about Fastmail? Okay,
Yeah.
like, fine. Right? Like,
I love
fine.
that voice.
But I am already paying for Google Workspace or whatever. And I just want to go back to something I know now. I've tried something else, and I never liked Hey. I always had problems with it. And I know Fastmail doesn't do that, like, isn't all about the weird stuff that Hey does, but I'm just going to go back to what I know, and I'm going to Gmail. So I wanted to just say at first that DNS sucks, and as does anything with custom domains, really, especially for email. It's much more complicated to do any kind of email-related stuff with domains, I find, than regular domain stuff. And I just feel like it's 2021. I don't know why I'm still manually entering MX records. Why am I still doing this? Why has nobody worked out a better way to handle this?
Isn't it wild if you think about it, how the internet runs on a bunch of numbers and dots?
I hate to think about stuff like that. Because then it's like, oh, you entered all the stuff correctly. So something I did, right, was I copied and pasted stuff from one of Google's help articles. But one of the help articles was missing a period, like a full stop at the end of the MX record. And I think that was why it wasn't working. But the thing about DNS is, like, you don't know if you've done it right for a really long time, right? Yes. Where, like, I deleted stuff from the MX records and I'm refreshing on Gmail's thing and, like, make sure you delete this one. It's like it's already gone. I deleted it an hour ago. Like, the whole system is bananas. I really do not know why we are still in this. Like, no one's fixed it.
Ultimately, it all comes down to the single evil, bad feature of computing, which is caching. Like, caching is the cause of all evil in computing.
Okay.
That would be my theory. It's because when data is, like, we're working on a lot of things for Mac stories. And whenever a developer says, I deployed, but you're probably not seeing that because of cache, I'm like, oh, why? I know, like, I don't need to be lectured on why caching is necessary, but your DNS experience confirms, propagation. That's because of caching. And, a lot of computer science problems ultimately come down to two things. One is caching and the other is time zones. So, yeah. Anyway.
Like, we've all been saved by caching, right?
I know.
As much as we're frustrated with it. But it's still the point of, like, sometimes you just feel like there should be better systems. And I really feel like, hey, enter these 5 MX records into your DNS history, and they're all just slightly different. I feel like there should be a better system than this.
Yes. Yeah,
right? I don't know why, like, Gmail can't just partner with all of the major domain registrars and they just work it out, right? Because it can't be good for Google either that they have to have, like, and they have, like, 30 help articles for all of the different domain registrars. And it's, I don't understand why this is still happening.
The real power move, Mike, would be to run your own email server. And that would be fun. Some people do that.
Would that be fun? I don't think that's fun. That doesn't seem fun to me. I don't like the thought of that at all. Mm-hmm. There is nothing about that I want. Mm-hmm. But I got it done. The migration wasn't difficult. I actually found it harder to move to Hey than to move back to Gmail. It just took a long time. But it seemed, for a while I was getting email in both places, which I do not understand how that's possible. I do not understand that. And again, I know it's caching, but I don't understand how I can get it in 2 places at once. Like I sent a test email and it arrived both in Hey and Gmail. And it's like, this doesn't make sense because isn't the whole point of this that this shouldn't happen? Like, isn't that why I have to do this whole thing in the first place? So anyway.
Yeah.
My email landscape as it stands right now is my personal email, my Relay FM email, and my kind of general Mike Hurley business email is all in Spark, right? So that's where all of that stuff has been for a long time and continues to be. The reason I use Spark for all of that email is because I really love their, I've spoken about this before, their team sharing features, which I use with the Relay FM email. Me and Carrie, our sales assistant, and sales manager, I should say, we share email a lot and communicate that way, and it's really great. And because I use that, I've just had all my email in the same place. But I've always wanted to separate the Cortex brand email out into its own application. I've done that for a while, and it's because it is another public-facing email address, and it's wildly different from my other stuff, so I don't want it to all get intermixed. When I was writing the Google Doc today, I think I had a Galaxy Brain moment, which was like, so I go with like regular Brain, which is all in the same place. Okay. And then it's like, I don't remember how these are referenced, but like slightly bigger Brain, which is, I'm going to separate the Cortex brand email out into its own email app. Galaxy Brain, why don't I have 3 email apps?
What?
Right? One for personal, one for Relay FM, and one for Cortex brand. Why do I need to have all of my email accounts?
You don't need to.
No, I don't need to. So why do I do this? This is why I wasn't sure. Like I couldn't get an answer. Like, okay, unified inbox, but
because
why?
then you have 3 different apps. Like,
yeah, but
are you
I
okay
also
with that?
use like Slack and iMessage and Discord to communicate in some instances with the same groups of people, right?
Yeah.
And I have like 2 Slacks or 3 Slacks, and like, you know, so I just think, why not maybe separate it out a little bit more? It's just something I thought of. I might try this. I don't know yet.
I mean, if you really want to separate, that's an idea for sure. Like, if you want to do that, then it makes sense.
I don't know if I want to do that, but I could imagine benefits. So like, for example, like the reason that you were using Hey initially was quite smart, right? Which is having something do a bunch of work for you with your email.
Yep.
And I like that, but not on all of my email, or I want different levels of this for different email accounts, right? So for my personal email, I'm happy with way more filtering. You can turn it up to the maximum, right? Because it's not critical. And you can do more filtering to that email, and I'm fine with it. With my like Relay FM email, I have SaneBox for that, but I have it on like its lowest settings, so it's trying to get rid of some of the junk, and it does that for me, but also then doesn't like hide from me some like first time business email or whatever, right? That you have. I like it. SaneBox are a previous sponsor. I do pay for it myself. Like you can say like, hey, I get cold emails like I get from people, so don't hide it all away, kind of thing, right? Like don't put it all in Sane later. I actually like that they have those settings. When I was first setting it up, I was concerned about that, but they have that. You know what I mean? So like I have, but like if I go all in on an app or service that does all of this stuff for me, I won't get those like the different experiences. Like you can go with kind of like vanilla email, just everything comes in, basically Apple Mail, right? Doesn't do anything. Stupid. And then you can go all the way up to something like a Hey, where it's doing a bunch of filtering for you. There's this app coming, I think, tomorrow. It's been teased a bunch. I'm intrigued about it. Big Mail, which is like trying to do this stuff, but on device. And I thought that could be potentially an interesting way to do my personal email, but I don't want to trust my business email to it, right? So this is part of what was getting me thinking about maybe I could just have multiple email apps that I use. But nevertheless, to get back onto the main topic, I'll follow up if that's a thing that I actually do. I don't know. This seems like a harebrained scheme. I've never heard anybody do it before, so that might suggest that it's a bad idea.
All right, so I feel like I'm in a pretty similar situation to you, but I'm resisting the idea of using multiple apps because I really don't want to have multiple email apps on my home screen. I don't know why, but I'm okay with multiple messaging apps, but I'm a all email goes into one bucket sort of person. So I also have been using Spark because of all features that I need from email, being able to share and assign emails to a different team member and having private conversations inside those messages, like that's really valuable to us right now. And so I feel like I needed to have I needed to transition from Hey quickly, because I don't have time right now to research other options and to go through all this all over again. And so I just went back to the place where I started, which was Gmail and Spark. So I am using Spark because of the sharing features. I do not love Spark. And I mentioned this before. I don't like its custom look. I don't like how it looks on iPad. It doesn't have a native 3-column layout. And it's got these weird like context menus that are custom, but some of them are native. And there's this mix of custom UI and native UI that I fundamentally dislike. But it's got sharing, and we can leave comments, and it integrates with Todoist, which is my task manager. And so it was very easy for me to transition to that. I've been trying Apple Mail again, like I set it up.
I have to point this out. I just saw this in Discord. Justin Hamilton says, can you build an email app in Obsidian?
Honestly, you probably can.
Roasted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But so I've been trying Apple Mail again as part of the review research cycle. It doesn't really have anything new this year. I mean, yes, you can open messages in center windows, and that's about it. It's got the mail tracking prevention stuff, which is cool, but a lot of other apps these days have it. So there's nothing really new for me in Apple Mail. And the big missing feature is sharing. And again, I don't think Apple is ever going to do this because they don't care about that sort of enterprisey, businessy feature.
They shouldn't implement sharing like that. Leave that to other companies to deal with.
Right.
That's such a next level thing, and really is something that people should pay for.
Yeah, Big Mail is interesting. I really want to check it out. I kind of hope that the developer would have like a press beta before. So unfortunately, we will not have a review tomorrow. I know that a lot of Mac Stories readers have been asking us, like, are you guys going to review Big Mail? Are we going to see a Big Mail review? No, because we don't have access to Big Mail. So I'm going to start using it like everybody else tomorrow. It does look very nice. I appreciate the sort of on-device processing and categorization of messages. I also want to see...
It's pretty.
It's pretty. I also want to see how well it works in practice for all kinds of messages that are not necessarily in English. Like, in theory, if it's using on-device processing and if it's using all the latest like Apple APIs for, to detect like sentiment analysis and that like receipts and all that kind of stuff, in theory, it should work for multiple languages. But again, we'll see in practice. It's pretty. It's got the, what's it called? Every feature has got its own name. There's Spy Scanner, which is the blocking, tracking pixels stuff. The developer also rebuilt essentially like a version of the Hey screener, which is called the Bouncer in Big Mail, which would be the same idea. Like, if you got an email from a new contact that's never emailed you before, you can bounce, in this case, the sender and say, no, I don't want to be contacted by this sender again in the future. So it's pretty. We'll see how it works. It's on iPhone,
it's on
iPad.
Every platform. It's on the Mac
every platform,
too, which
on
is
the Mac.
super rare to see. And I know it's easier to do now, right? Like I'm sure it's a Catalyst app, but I don't know that. I'm expecting it's a Catalyst app.
Yeah.
But even still, you don't necessarily see people doing that. So I'm intrigued. My final thought here is I wish that mail extensions for macOS were also available on iPhone and iPad. My hope is that these extensions will go the way of Safari web extensions, which is launch it first on the Mac and the following year bring the same technology to iOS and iPadOS. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So maybe next year I could reconsider Mail if it's got extensions, and I really want to see what developers do with extensions on the Mac this year, sort of get an idea if this technology is going to be interesting going forward or not. But right now, I'm going to try Big Mail. I also kind of wish that I could do the following system. Like, I wish that I could set up Spark
in a
Mhm.
way that I get notified only by shared messages. Like, I want to use a different email client for my day-to-day, like composing and responding to email messages. But I just want to keep Spark on the side just for the sharing stuff. The problem is the notification settings in Spark, there's no way to say, just notify me for shared activity. You either turn them on, the push notifications, or you don't. So if I do this, I guess I would have to leave push notifications for messages, all messages, enabled in Spark, but use a different client so that I don't get push notifications twice, basically. Like, for example, I would have to
Well,
leave
no, you could do
notifications
this.
enabled.
Can't you
How?
have notifications for comments?
Not just for comments. I only want them for comments and for when John shares an email message with me in Spark. At least on iOS and iPadOS, there is no setting that says...
I have notifications, email, and comments. They're like two different.
Are you looking on the Mac?
No, I'm looking on my iPhone.
How?
Oh, I've gone
Tell me
to
how.
settings, and then
No, you tell me how right now.
I've gone to the settings, and I'm going
Settings.
to notifications,
Settings, notifications.
and there's at the top email and comments, and you can
Oh
choose
my God.
between each.
Oh my God.
So you could turn off
See,
notifications for email and leave them on for comments.
this is why Sparks UI is...
Well, I mean, some of us noticed it immediately. You know, I can't speak for everybody.
that segmented control was invisible to me until you mentioned it.
Yeah, it's not. I don't even think that's even a standard control. It looks a little bit odd.
So how would I do this? Like, notification type.
You turn all the
Notifica-
notifications off for
Oh
the
my God.
email.
You completely changed my email life right now.
So
Mike.
now you know you can do this. Tell me what you're gonna do. What are you gonna
Okay.
do now?
All right, so here's the plan. Spark goes off the home screen, and I install Big Mail tomorrow. I'm struggling because now I have all this new information that you just sprung on me. Move Spark into a folder. Receive notifications just for comments.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my only question is if John
Like if
shares
he
if he shares an email with me without commenting on the email, will I be notified?
I don't know. You'll have to test it.
I'll have to test it. Or I would have to ask John, please, whenever you share a message with me, also leave a comment,
Which is not hard.
which is not hard. Thank you, Michael.
No
See?
problem. So if you don't go with Big Mail, because again, we don't know, you probably
Mail.
by the time a lot of people listening to this, you could probably try out Big Mail. You'd go to Apple Mail.
Yes.
You wouldn't go to anything else.
No. Have you seen the other email apps? They're even weirder than Spark.
What about like Outlook?
No. I'm sorry. I know that a lot of people use and appreciate Microsoft products, but I find them visually unappealing. That Microsoft has no taste. Personally speaking, and I really dislike the Microsoft UI.
Okay.
I really don't like it. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I use an Xbox. I love my Xbox.
Yeah.
But when it comes to productivity apps, no. No. So I would use and I like Apple Mail, right? For other things like, drag and drop. It works and it gives you a link, deep link to the message. It always works with the latest iPad technologies like multi-window a couple of years ago, or in this case, center window in iPadOS 15. So I'm fine with Apple Mail, right? But you just blew my mind with this notification trick, Mike. See, you are the email power user here, and should have asked you before. Now that I'm looking at it, I mean, there was a control to switch between email and comments right there, and I never saw it. I don't think it's my fault that I never saw it. Our control is strange. Anyway, thank you, Michael.
So anytime my like if you ever need me for app consultancy, like I see things with like the regular person's vision, like I come in here and like, oh, I can get through this checkbox. You're just looking at it with like higher minded design, like you see things only as a good designer.
Honestly, you are right. Like,
Yeah.
no, not about the good designer eye, but about like standard controls. That is something that I've increasingly noticed about myself.
Yeah, and I'm getting in here, and I'm back here with the every person, like
Yeah.
having to jump through all these hoops to understand how my
Yeah.
apps work. I mean, as well, honestly, I've used Spark for so long, I feel like I
Yes.
kind of understand their
Yes.
design at this
And
point.
you do a lot more email than I do.
I do
Like
a lot of email.
I've seen you in real life lots of times with your phone, and you get and you respond to a lot of email, much more email than I've
Here's
ever
the
had.
thing. So I'm just in Spark right now, and I'm like selecting. I have received 47 emails today.
Oh no.
And what I need to just make very clear to everybody, I don't get like marketing emails from your favorite brands kind of thing, Like that's not that's not the kind of, like, I'm not on like, hey, my favorite clothing brand 123.com's email list. This is just like, that is work related email right there. I get a lot of email. But so here's my thing. It all starts now with Big Mail. So is Big Mail something I'm going to use? Maybe we'll talk about it in future episodes. We can follow up on it. If I don't, I'm currently using Gmail for the Cortex brand email, and I'll probably just stick with it in Gmail.
Okay. Like the Gmail app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until, I don't know, like, and then maybe I'll change my mind later on. But what I would really like to do now, though, honestly, is like, I do like this idea of 3 email apps. I want to see how far I can take this, and if it makes any sense, or if it's just a nightmare disaster. We'll find out. All right, this episode is also brought to you by Indeed. AI can do some incredible things, but for most jobs in your company, you need good old-fashioned carbon-based life forms, preferably a brilliant one, more preferably as soon as possible. If you're looking for great minds that move the world, you can hire them with Indeed. Indeed is the job site that makes hiring as easy as 1, 2, 3. Post, screen, interview. All on Indeed. Get your quality shortlist of candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description faster, and only pay for the candidates that meet must-have qualifications, and schedule and complete interviews in your Indeed dashboard. Indeed makes connecting with and hiring the right talent fast and easy, with tools like Indeed Instant Match, giving you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately, and Indeed skills tests that on average reduce hiring time by 27%. So you can look at loads more people, basically. You can choose from more than 130 skills tests, then add your must-have requirements, so you only pay for applications that meet them. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined. If you're hiring, you need Indeed. Get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job at Indeed.com/connected. Get a $75 credit at Indeed.com/connected. Offer is valid through June 30th. Terms and conditions apply. One more time, that's Indeed.com/connected. Our thanks to Indeed for their support of this show and all of Relay FM. So you were popping off on Twitter about Safari on, I think most of your concerns are iOS 15 than iPadOS 15, but you tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right. I have installed Monterey on an external drive, but I've only used it like once.
Oh, do you have any opinions on Monterey?
Shortcuts is great.
I guess the universal okay. Universal control's not a thing yet, though, is it?
I have no idea. I also don't care.
Oh, really?
Well, it's cool. I'm never gonna use it.
Fair enough.
But yes, my concerns are mostly about iOS and iPadOS. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
I should say that Safari, along with Shortcuts, really is my favorite iOS and iPad app. I like of the ones made by Apple, obviously. It's one of the apps where I spend most of my time every day. And I just really like Safari for a lot of reasons, from Safari Reader to how shortcuts integrate with Safari, to being able to run JavaScript shortcuts in Safari. I really like it. and I've always liked Safari, and I've always believed that it's really the crown jewel of the Apple built-in apps, and that's really why I care about Safari being great, basically. But the version that we got in the first beta of iOS and iPadOS 15 has a lot of issues, in my opinion. And now I know that a lot of people have talked about this topic. I'm very much aware that it's beta 1 and that Apple is working on it. And I get the sense that they're really listening to whatever is going on with Safari on all platforms, including the Mac. So I just wanted to have this conversation on the show to sort of expand on the things I tweeted and to offer better context about them and maybe offer some suggestions if those can be helpful to anyone.
And also as well, you can help explain it to me because I have not used this on the iPhone.
Okay.
My experience with Safari has been on iPadOS, and
Okay.
I'm mostly pretty positive about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with the thing with iPadOS. I have two main problems with the iPadOS version. The first one, the obvious one, is the unified tab and address bar design, which I would be okay with. I don't particularly care about seeing the full address of the web page I'm in. Like for the past few years, I've kept just the main domain in the Safari address bar, and I'm fine with it. I don't need to see the full URL at all times. But my issue is that on iPad, if you open multiple tabs and you click on it, the location of the address bar is never the same because that unified design means that each tab expands in a different place on screen. Used to be that you have your address bar centered at the top and your tabs underneath that. And the address bar never physically moves on screen. It's in a fixed position. Now, because of this unified design, you can never really tell, right, where it's going to be. And I think it's visually glaring that you see this jumping around horizontally a lot. Like, I really dislike it. And it confuses me visually. And I feel like it requires a lot more... what's it called? There's a term I'm thinking about.
Spatial awareness?
Yeah, something like that. It requires more, what's it called? Cognitive something. Yes.
Load?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Emma, in the Discord. I really don't think it works for me because it feels like I need to learn every single time what I'm looking at. And I don't think that's good. The second issue that I have is the sidebar, which on its own, like I appreciate the inclusion of a sidebar to have more elements displayed in it. But my problem with it is that it feels vastly underused at the moment. It seems like Apple added a sidebar on iPad just to make it possible for you to easily switch between tab groups. Right?
And they should have a compact sidebar, I think, too. I believe this is a thing you can do, right? You can have, and I don't really feel like I see a lot of apps do it. Maybe I've had a fever dream that you can have like a compact sidebar because sometimes I just want to go between my tab groups. And the sidebar, even on the big iPad, it really shrinks Safari down. Like it's too large. And I would love to be able to just give my tab groups an icon and just have the icons like live on the side in like a really skinny tab bar, and I could just like bounce between them or something.
I think you can switch between once you're in a tab group. I believe you can. By the way, you can have a compact sidebar, like the thing you mentioned. You can have that in iPadOS, but also in Safari specifically. I think you can switch between tab groups with a drop-down menu in the top toolbar.
Oh, really?
I think it shows you the name of the tab group you're in, and you can click it to see other tab groups, I believe.
But then
I've seen that.
Does that work for like the non-tab group tabs?
It doesn't.
You see, because the issue that I have is I like having the tab groups, right? I have a Relay FM tab group. I have like a Cortex tab group. Like I have like different tab groups for different things that I'm doing in Safari. But then I also have just a like I'm browsing the internet tabs.
Yes.
And I don't particularly need those to sync because I have iCloud tabs too if there's something like I particularly need to grab. And I could imagine setting up a tab group for this in the future. But this goes back to something that Gray was talking about, which I agree with. Like, you can't default tabs to open in a tab group, which would make that easier. But I still want to be able to switch back to that easily. Like, the most of the switching I'm doing is from regular tabs to a tab group and back again, not like tab group to tab group to tab group. So I feel like I'm opening the sidebar a lot.
Yeah. So a couple of things here. First, I wish that I could pin more elements to the sidebar. I wish that I could put folders of bookmarks there, not just tab groups. And instead, Apple is really pushing tab groups in this release, and it's sort of saying, yeah, you don't need to use bookmarks anymore. Which brings me to my other problem with this sidebar design on iPad, which is I like the tab group idea, like as a general concepts of, oh, you can group your tabs together and you can give them a name and you can give it a context. I like that. My issue with tab groups is that in this current version, I don't think I'm ever going to use them, because the way I would like to switch between these different groups of tabs is I wish they were permanent, in the sense that in my mind, a tab group is something that I can create beforehand, and when I click it, it recreates my tab group, right? So imagine that I create like a Mac Stories tab group, and it's like the homepage, the posting interface in WordPress, and maybe a Google Doc for Mac Stories, right? And when I click on that, I always want those 3 tabs to open. Similarly, I created a tab group called Italian News, and I opened 3 tabs for the 4 different Italian news sources that I follow. But the problem is, those are not bookmarks. They are not permanent. And so if you navigate to a different page, it stays within the tab group. But the next time you open it, it doesn't go back to the home page, right? So I guess what I'm asking for is, I just want to use folder bookmarks, like folders containing bookmarks, that every time I open them, they reopen those permanent fixed URLs, right? Because Apple tried to sell this as, oh, when you're doing research, you can organize your tabs in groups. But when I do research, like personally speaking, when I'm using Safari for a particular task, let's say research on going on vacation, it's not like I'm handling multiple tasks at the same time. Like, I'm looking for a place to stay, I'm going to open a bunch of tabs for different hotels and different restaurants, right? Different locations, whatever. But it's not like at the same time, I'm also dealing with podcast show notes. And so I want to switch to a tab group containing 2 different Google Docs. This idea of now you can organize your tabs in different groups for all your activities, it's not something that I ever find myself doing. Like, I'm doing research, I discover a bunch of links, I want to save those links, right? It's not like I need... The thing that doesn't work for me is this fleeting nature of the tab groups that are basically, they're tabs, they're not bookmarks, but you can group them together.
Yeah, I think if you don't mind me jumping in, I think
please.
One thing that needs to kind of be really underscored is one of the features that they've seem to have removed from Safari, or maybe they haven't, or I hoped it was going to be similar. To be fair, I haven't actually used it on the Mac yet, so maybe it's still there, but it reminds me of it. It's pinned tabs. So I use pinned tabs on Safari on my Mac a lot, and I kind of wished that pinned tabs and tab groups were more similar, because pinned tabs, they can't really be destructed. Like, if you try to go somewhere else, like click a link from a pinned tab, it opens a new tab to keep you on the domain, at least, that you're on. But with tab groups, if you have, like, these are these 6 tabs I want to keep open, but you click a link in one of those tabs, it's just changed the tab. So, like, if you were on, say, Mac Stories and always wanted the Mac Stories homepage, but then clicked a link that went to 6 colors, now that tab is 6 colors. And, like, that's not they are
That's my problem.
destructible. Yeah,
Yes.
and that is a frustration for me too.
That's my problem. So, and also I should say, I'm a person that tends to clear tabs in Safari when I'm done with the tabs. Like I don't like to keep lots of tabs open. Just I want to be done with it, and I want to save and archive those links in other apps like Obsidian or my task manager, whatever. I don't want to leave tabs open. So I don't know, tab groups in its current form, maybe if they added like a pinned option, I could see myself using those. So I could create a tab group for my Italian news or for Nintendo news, for example, and so that those pinned tabs would always be there in the group, but links would open in separate tabs within the group. In that case, I could see myself using the tab group. In its current fashion, it's like you're just organizing tabs that are not permanently assigned to a website. And that for me diminishes the utility of it.
I understand that. I still, even though I have that frustration, I still will and am and plan to continue using tab groups, because I do otherwise have, like, in a web browser, even on my iPad, like 8 tabs or so that I always want to have open, and then we'll use other tabs after that. And I do find that I'm more organized with tab groups by having 2 groups. One has 6 tabs in it, one has 2 tabs in it.
Mm-hmm.
I do actually really like that feature, but I definitely agree with you. Like there are some things they could do to not just refine this feature, but really make it much more useful.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't seem like a lot. It's not about reinventing the wheel. Take some cues from features you already have, like bookmarks or pin tabs.
Yeah. There's a few other things that don't really work for me in the new Safari in general, and especially on iOS. Share extensions are now hidden by default.
I hate this.
I don't understand why, but when you press the More button to open the share sheet, it's like half of the share sheet.
I don't know why it even looks like the share sheet. It's like it tricks me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Yes.
I don't like that.
It contains your action extensions and your shortcuts and your default Safari actions, but it doesn't have the contacts at the top row of profile pictures, and it doesn't have share extensions. You need to press a separate share button to sort of switch the share sheet mid-flight to show you share extensions and contacts, which I don't understand. And even on iPad, the reload button is gone from the address bar and it's now part of this context menu, which, I mean, seriously, you're on an iPad, you're working in landscape mode, and you didn't have the place for a reload button that needs to be tucked away in a menu. I mean, I understand that modern Apple likes to do away with buttons occasionally, but I mean, come on. I think it's kind of ridiculous that developers have to write an extension to bring back a reload button in a browser. I think it's kind of ridiculous.
I could get used to the pull to refresh on the iPhone.
But that only works if you are at the top of the page.
Exactly, and that's the problem, because I'm not always. And a lot of the times when I'm refreshing stuff or whatever, like I'm doing it for speed, and it's because I'm trying to buy something or like get a ticket to something or whatever, and I want to be able to hit the button, not pull to refresh.
Other big problem, the floating address bar at the bottom on iPhone.
Okay.
So,
all right, tell me about this, because I've had no experience of this at all.
Okay. So when you open Safari, the address bar is now at the bottom, right? When you scroll a page, it sort of minimizes at the bottom of the screen. If you scroll up or if you tap it, it expands into this floating bar. And the floating bar, you can tap it again to select the URL. And that right there is the first issue that I have with it, which is it's at the bottom, but if you tap it, it shoots all the way to the top. And so if you're tracking it with your eyes, you need to follow the thing like you're looking at it, and you tap on it and you expect to be looking at the same place on screen, but then you need to move your eyes and look at the top. It literally flies to the top.
The
like
very top?
The very top. It doesn't sit above the keyboard. Like I would expect, like it's at the bottom, I tap on it, a keyboard needs to be displayed. That's fine. And I would assume, well, the address bar is now above the keyboard, but no, it shoots all the way to the very top.
You know why they might have done that? I don't mean this is good design, but I bet when you are entering text into a web page, that tab bar would probably be hiding the place you were typing in.
Yes, and which is bringing me to the other problem. This bar, because of the floating design, it covers the contents of web pages. And I've seen this already. For example,
when it goes to the top, it does that too, right? It's still going to do it. Yeah.
But also when it's at the bottom, it covers the page.
Oh.
And when I'm seeing this right now when it's at the bottom in a service like Mailbrew, for example, which it's a web app that has its own top bar at the bottom. Now the top bar in Mailbrew is all weird because of the floating bar also at the bottom in Safari. And so developers would have to adjust to this floating bar at the bottom. We're building a few things for MacStories ourselves, and one of the menus that we have now will have to make a consideration as to what happens with the new Safari if Apple doesn't change anything, because this floating bar covers part of our menu. It's all, because it's not, Apple wanted to get rid of sort of UI Chrome as much as possible, and they thought we'll just make it float above the content of a web page. But the problem is, web pages, they were not built for that, and all kinds of websites and web apps will look broken because of this right now.
I guess the question is, right, when I'm using the keyboard, do I need any of the functions that are in the bar? Like, why do I even need to see it?
I don't know. But it gets even worse, because what this bar does, and try your best to visualize this, and it's kind of ironic. This bar, in its current design right now, it makes Google AMP websites look even nicer and better. And if it stays like this, it's going to confuse a lot of people, because with this design, a Google AMP web page will look like an old regular Safari page, because you're going to see at the top the Google AMP address bar. And what's even more ironic about that, it's that the Google AMP address bar has a share button. And when you tap the share button, it brings up the actual real share sheet. So in a way, in a sort of a twisted, ironic way, with this design, Apple is doing Google a favor, because Google AMP pages, they do look much nicer because they don't have the double address bar at the top, and they have a share button that works better than the Safari share sheet. So in a way, if you're a Google AMP fan, you gotta hope that this design sticks around, because it makes your Google AMP pages even nicer. This floating bar, it loses a bunch of buttons, right? Because there's no longer an address bar at the top and a toolbar at the bottom, you don't have the navigation arrows anymore. So if you want to navigate back and forth on a website, back and forward, you cannot do it anymore with buttons. You need to do that with swipe gestures. But those swipe gestures, they don't work on all websites. They don't work on all web apps, right? Sometimes swiping for me in some websites just doesn't work. And so those buttons are gone. Similarly, other buttons were removed. The reload button, the ability to open reader settings and display settings for the current page. All of those buttons are now tucked away in a menu, in the same weird pseudo share sheet menu that you mentioned before. Bookmarks and reading list on iPhone. You know what's the only way to open bookmarks and reading list now, Mike?
Is it under the bar?
No. The only way to open those bookmarks is to open a new tab, or to click on the address bar and see the start page. So if you want to see your bookmarks on iPhone, the bookmarks icon only lives at the top of the address bar. So once again, to repeat this, you're tapping a floating bar at the bottom, it shoots all the way up to the top, and the bookmarks icon is there. So the only way for you to open your bookmarks, like it used to be pretty simple. There's a bookmarks icon at the bottom in iOS 14, and you tap it and you navigate to your bookmarks. Now you need to go to the start page, either by opening a new tab or tapping the address bar, and you need to reach a button all the way to the top underneath the clock if you want to open your bookmarks. What else? I mean, the start page is really nice. The start page is one of those nice new things in the new Safari. Private mode, right? Lots of people want to use private mode. Used to be that there was a button in the tabs view that said private, and that opened private mode. Now the only way to open private mode on iPhone is to go to the tab view, which is nice. It's a grid view. This change I do like.
Yes.
So you tap on the tabs button, you're taken to the grid view, but there's no longer a private button there. You need to tap on the text label that says 2 tabs or 3 tabs, and that opens a menu that has a bunch of options, including private. So it takes you one extra tap to activate private mode. It's a bunch of little things like that where it seems to me like they're sacrificing a lot of usability in the name of this floating bar at the bottom. And you have to wonder, is that really worth it? Like all these things you're losing just to put that bar at the bottom.
Why does the bar need to float? I don't think I understand why the bar needs to float. Like, why can't the bar just be fixed and look?
Why can't you have a toolbar at the top and a toolbar at the bottom? Like just to gain what exactly? 20 pixels? I mean, is that really necessary? It's also counterintuitive to the fact that nobody's purchasing an iPhone 12 mini anyway. So like those small phones where you could make the case for, we need to display extra content on web pages. You ain't selling those phones, Apple. So
no, but I mean, because the thinking, I guess, which is I do like, right, which is move it all to the bottom because as phones get bigger, it's easier to have that at the bottom, right? But I don't know why it needs to move, and I don't know why they have to hide as many buttons as they have hidden. Like, there's some stuff that I kind of understand. Like, maybe you won't be happy about this, maybe other people won't be happy about this. I don't think many people really use bookmarks. Like, I don't think that is a well-used feature, by like the general user. Like, and so maybe like an extra tap to get to bookmarks, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. But the reload button, the share button, like that's the bridge too far. Yeah, but the navigation, like all of that feels like it's too much for me, I think.
Yeah, and I really don't know why that thing needs to float and sort of cause issues with web pages.
Yeah, the moving is silly to me. That really does feel silly, Federico. I don't get that.
There's some things I like, which I want to mention. The new customizable start page, I think it's really nice. I installed a gradient wallpaper as the background image for the start page. I like that you can reorder the sections of the start page. So I immediately turned off shared with you, which is the new, gimmicky feature this year. I just left enabled favorites, reading list, and Siri suggestions, because sometimes Siri does know what I want to visit. So I like that you can customize the start page and install a custom background image. That's cool. Extensions are going to be great, I think. Web extensions coming to iPhone and iPad are going to be so nice for password managers, for note-taking apps, for, task managers, right? All things. And maybe this is why Apple thought they could hide share extensions, because they feel like most of that functionality will be replaced by web extensions. I could see that argument, but I still think it's weird that they're hiding the contacts,
that's
right,
from
the share sheet.
That's like a real bold prediction.
Bold move. I can also tell you that with the Mac Stories Special Projects team, with Finn, the One True Sun, we have been working on our own Safari web extension. There's a screenshot for you in the show notes that you can check out. We've been working on our own highlighter app to help me highlight things on web pages and export those highlights to Markdown. And
can I share this with the Passionate ones?
You can. You can see how extensions, you can see the extension icon in the address bar, and they can open a pop-up on iPad, which becomes a sheet on iPhone. It's very nice, and I really think extensions are going to be, one of the things to check out on the App Store this year. So that I'm really happy about. What else do I like? Extensions. The custom start page, and basically nothing else, I think.
All right.
So,
do you think they're going to change any of it?
Yes. I think they are listening. I feel like potentially this is one of the reasons why we haven't seen a beta 2 this week. I think Apple is gathering lots of feedback, including the Mac. Like I haven't talked about the Mac, but I also think they're listening there. I know that Steven is not here this week, but Steven also doesn't really like the new Safari on the Mac.
Yeah, because some of this stuff does kind of get worse on the Mac, because it's like you really aren't lost for space there. Right, like fundamentally, like at a principle level, the fact of hiding some buttons behind different, like if there's one platform where you have more screen space, you can have it on the Mac, and so it kind of gets, I think, even more egregious in some instances there.
Yeah, but what I would do personally, like I hope they will make tweaks. I think they will change a few things around, like move things around. I feel like if they absolutely want to keep the unified top bar approach and the floating bar and the bar at the bottom, I don't think it should be a floating element. I think it should be a fixed element. I don't think it should jump all the way to the top of the screen when you tap it. They should go back to a standard like bottom toolbar that does not interfere with the contents of a web page. That's on the iPhone, I mean. On the iPad, they should make the tabs wider, and they should ditch the animations. Like you can keep the unified design, but please avoid all those animations. When you select the tab, just make the tabs bigger and wider.
With more than like 6 or 7 tabs on the iPad, it can be hard to open them without closing them with the trackpad.
Yeah.
Like the trackpad wants to just select the X. It's like, no, I want to open the tab.
Allow people to, restore share extensions. Allow people to customize the sidebar. Like, why can I customize the start page with those really nice controls, but I cannot customize the sidebar? Customizable sidebars were a feature of iPadOS 14. So the sidebar should be customizable as well. And lastly, I'm just going to say it. Maybe it's time to offer a setting to say, do you want to see the address bar at the bottom on iPhone or not? Maybe it should be a setting. Safari has lots of settings already. Maybe this is the kind of thing where you cannot please everyone. There's going to be a group of people who are going to say, no, I absolutely want to have the floating bar at the bottom. I don't care about these other trade-offs. Let me put it at the bottom. Maybe this has to be a setting. And it's fine. It's fine. Browsers are... It's hard to please everyone. But what doesn't work for me right now is the imposing of this new design and the trade-offs that come with it to all users, right? So maybe the solution is just to offer a setting.
Maybe by next week we'll know.
Yeah.
All right, I think that does it for this episode. Before we go, let me tell you about another show here at Relay FM that you might enjoy, and that's called Rocket. Rocket covers all of the hard tech news of the week, but in a really fun way. From the latest Apple news to scams of fake blood testing companies, Rocket is there, and you can be too at relay.fm/rocket, or search for Rocket wherever you listen to podcasts. I would like to thank our sponsors for this week's episode, Indeed, ExpressVPN, and Pingdom. If you would like to find us online, you go to MacStoriesNet and at Fatici for Federico. Steven is at 512pixels.net and he's at ISMH. And I am at iMyke, IMYKE, and I stream keyboard stuff every Friday, Mike.live, if you want to check that out. Federico, I have a question for you.
Oh, the comeback of the question for me. Okay.
If you could live anywhere in the world that wasn't Rome, so I'll even let you keep Italy if you want to. But if you could move to anywhere in the world, where would you go? And don't worry about politics for the sake of this discussion.
Right. I feel like it would be a small town in Japan,
Oh, nice.
like Nagano, for example. I saw some
Mhm.
pictures of Nagano that looked like, the contrast between modern Japan and sort of rural Japan. Those small towns that look like they're straight out of a manga. I don't know. I could see myself sort of spending my retirement years there. Or
Oh.
and we've been saying this with Sylvia for a few years now. Once in many years, if in many years we're tired of all this, city life and whatever, I would just love to open like a small sort of like cocktail bar on a beach somewhere, like in Hawaii or
This is
something.
different to the dog farm. Is it a dog farm you wanted to have?
The dog, yes. Those two things with Sylvia we keep mentioning over and over, like either farm with all kinds of animals, but especially dogs, or like a small bar on the beach somewhere, like in Southern America, for example. Just living the life there by the beach, serving cocktails, surfing. I don't surf, but I like to watch people surf. So, kind of like that,
Very
with the
nice.
palm trees,
Oh.
drinking tequila, that sort of stuff.
Do you drink tequila?
Well, I used to, but then I had
Right.
a bad night with it.
Mhm. Fair enough. Maybe
But I could
that'll
try
be a
again.
question for another time.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Connected. We'll be back as a trio next time. Until then, say goodbye, Federico.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.